She's called Lidewij Edelkoort, and I guess you all know her. She curates exhibitions. She makes magazines. She was dean of a design school, and she has a trend forecasting agency. And all that, I don't even know if she calls herself a designer. And that's what I envy a lot, because it's really wonderful that you can instrumentalize your ideas in so many ways, so inspiringly. We're first going to watch a film, and then we welcome Lidewij Edelkoort.
This song says, no matter who you are, no matter where you go in your life, at some point you're going to need somebody to stand by you. Oh yeah, oh my darling, stand by me. No matter who you are, no matter where you go in life, you gon' need somebody to stand by you. No matter how much money you got, all the friends you got, you gon' need somebody to stand by you.
When the night has come and the land is dark and that moon is the only light we'll see. Though I won't be afraid, I won't shed one tear, just as long as your people come and stand by me.
And darling, darling, stand by me.
Oh, stand by me.
Oh, stand, stand,
Stand by me.
come on, stand by
Stand by
me.
me.
Yeah. Oh, well, that sky that we look upon, well, you, thank you.
So I can go. It's done. This is what I want to say in the first place. And then maybe if we have time, I want to say something about design. First of all, I want to congratulate Richard and his team on this conference, which really happened in Amsterdam, which was needed. And also on your very fashionable choice of yellow, because yellow is the new pink. So we have 15 more years, you can use your yellow. That's a free advice. Good. First, before I start, I would like you to note down this address, trendtablet.com, which is our new social web space forum for trends, and we would like you all to send whatever you want to share with us, what is concerning your work, your design, your trends, your travels, or whatever it is. It's already starting pretty nice, so I hope trying to get more people to participate, because the idea is that we become a sort of free global forum of exchange on trends. This music is the introduction to the point I want to make, which is called We Are Family. At the same time, I'm going to compare family to a still life for a stiller life, taking more time and being more at ease. I got really interested in the still life because what I like about it is the interaction of the different objects, but also the space between them, which becomes an object in itself, exactly like in a skyline of a city. And so I decided to compare us to still life ideas and products, but also talk about the future of society and man. First of course, still in society today, everybody is looking for the other half, the better half, the lid on the pot, and so forth. In Holland, they say lid on the pot. Everybody can find a lid on the pot, they say. It doesn't matter anymore what gender, what age, it's become much more free. But it's for sure that society acknowledges that the sum of two is more than two. It's like 2.5 or 2 3/4, as we see in this wonderful cup. What happens when two people get together of the opposite gender, often, is babies. And today we see something happening in society which is remarkable, and that is that it's today the fathers who father the babies. Everywhere I go in the world, I see now that fathers are concerned with their offspring from the very first day. They're openly tender, they carry their babies in public life. And it's fun, because they do it in a very different way as girls do. So they sometimes carry them like bread, on their hand. Or they carry them under their arm. Or, of course, on the shoulders. And I believe that that will give a very new society, because if you are actually cuddled by both your parents, you will be a very different animal. What is beautiful to see is that all these men doing this, they are decidedly different men. They're not longer the he-man, they're not longer just the man who is going to take care of, to bring in money and to provide. And so they are more active, and it brings in the man, I think, a much more tender, soft phase of their lives. So society with these fathers will become a very different society. And there seems to be, as far as I can see, also a baby boom. Especially in United States and Japan, I noticed that areas where formerly young people would go out and have drinks, everybody would have little dogs. And there was dog shops with dog merchandise. Now there is all the babies with baby shops and baby merchandise. So it's a big shift in society, and I see the numbers growing. So I believe that through the crisis, there is a regain of interest in fathering. The still life bench here is beautiful because it's including the eventuality of another one, a little one. The little ones are important in our society, transform society, and bring with them whatever is the residue of their upbringing. So whatever is the taste and the behavior of your parents is what later on motivates you in life, and it keeps coming back. An idea of beauty, an idea of a color, an idea of respect, whatever it is you learned. Food, the way you eat. So it's very important that we install in younger generations a better code of behavior. And today, of course, that's very difficult because in public life and political life that doesn't exist anymore. So parents have a very tough role to play, but it should be played. It is also interesting to be with siblings, to be together as sisters and brothers or both, each different, but all cut from the same wood, we say again in Dutch. So one is maybe the tallest and the brightest. Often the little one, which is the little chubby one, it has the most humor. And then there's the one which is in between, and she feels actually a little bit weird because she doesn't know where she belongs. Family becomes important when we have difficulty in our life. Family is playing a much bigger role today in society again than it did. It's not going back in time. It's not at all like the old days. It's a new way of being together. Then there is the idea of bonding between girls. It's a big, big thing. All these twittering girls. In all the restaurants, you know, if you sit next to them, you cannot really talk anymore. They make a lot of noise. They have a lot of things to share. They share that on a very free basis. They keep also twittering with others while they do this. And they share things about sex, work, and general things of life. This bond between women is new, is getting stronger, and I don't think they needed desperate housewives to get there. It really has sort of born from society as such. These girls will be together on this still life bench, which is beautiful because you can take in your position. You can say, I will be in the middle, I will be on the end, I will be on the fringe. I will turn my back against them, but I'm still part of them. And this is the idea of the future of society, in which we will bond in groups, but in a very free way, giving ourselves to the group. There's a key difference in the men of tomorrow. It doesn't happen very often today that trends are really over, that you say, wow, this is really old-fashioned. But it happened to me when I saw a poster with a very famous English footballer for a very famous Italian brand of underwear. And everything about him was very bulky. Everything. He was he didn't fit in the frame even. And I felt, this is really the past. This is really gone. This pumping of men, this unhealthiness, masquerading as health is really not anymore what we want. And I understood that the change of the man as the father is also the change of the man, period, becoming softer, more slender, more romantic, more poetic, different. So he will choose in the future other ways, other walks of life, other merchandise, other food, other services, which are much softer and more sometimes immaterial or made of romantic material than before. His general outlook will also be more like this, more pale, longer hair, slimmer frame. Beautiful as a farmhand, if you want, some natural beauty. That's a very big change for the man's world, men's design, car design. All mobility design should really take note of this change in the male psyche. The bond we have with animals is going to only grow. This is, I believe, because we feel ourselves endangered species, so we somehow really feel like them. And it's also because we want to have a true ecological feeling of belonging to each other, and therefore it is now getting very close to animism, where we venerate the animal world, the natural world, and we almost experience it as a spiritual thing. And this, I have seen this going on for 15 years, and it is growing still every other day. Therefore, we see that our goods and our services and whatever we want to do should play the role of a pet and should be much more close to us, much more in harmony and osmosis. In the same way, our close to the earth, our bond to the earth will be definitely very, very powerful, still and growing, and it's not going to stop. The earth is speaking up. Mother Earth is at this point warning us big time that we should really go another way. We don't seem to be able to listen again. If Japan doesn't help, how far does it have to go? How many disasters do we need more? Is what I wonder. However, this means that we will build differently, that we will create differently, that we will be differently, period. And this will bring about also the very strong revival, obviously, of biofood, which I read yesterday in the Financial Times, is now in danger to become mass. That was a very interesting phrase. It's so successful, it became so successful during this crisis that some farmers said it's really difficult because we are getting pulled into mass producing better food, and then we lose the whole idea. I would like to have a glass of water. A very important new couple in society is grandparents and children. They are more close than ever because the grandparents did a very bad job with their children. They want to have a second chance. And the children still don't have the parents they deserve. So they just get together easily. They spend a lot of money. The kids get the parents on all the tools and net and pads and stuff. And the grandparents pay. It's such an important couple that people like Disney are really counting on them and are designing new rides, for instance, which are good for both generations. The kids are obviously very, very early on smart, and the parents stay young forever. So there is lots of reasons why they want to hang out together. This means that our society will see young and old with a very new eye, somehow don't see the difference. So we see that gender doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. It's a no-age society. And that's, again, a very major shift. In the same way, we will accept the old and the new at the same time, and we will actually want to fuse it in the future. The family of choice, the family of togetherness from different countries through adoption or fostering is also a fact of life, becoming very important in our inner cities, coloring our landscape, a beautiful totem of different yet together people. This is happening while we speak. Our politicians are violently against it today, which is very dangerous for the future of Europe. I know that in the Netherlands people don't want to discuss the political situation, but I think looking at it from afar, you should be much more concerned. Now, to be concerned also means being able to speak up. And I think in this society where we are getting together more and more so, and where we are spending more time together as families and groups and friends, we will have to learn how to create a balance and how to fight and struggle and discuss. Because today, with all the SMS and other devices we have, we don't really pick up the phone anymore. People now are fired by SMS. People are divorced by email. So I think it's becoming almost a danger, and that we should train future generations to have debate, like we have it in England, where you really have two tables and people fight, and there is some camp which is winning. And I think it's very cool. It's drawing enormous crowds in London, and I think it's something we should reinstall in all societies. But the most beautiful change in society, obviously, and I think it has been an ongoing red thread through your conference, is the idea that we are now giving up our individual self and we donate it to the group. I have seen this happening first when I was still working at the Design Academy as its leader, if you want, and I saw my students say, we don't want to do this alone, we do this together. And they would each take a position in what they knew how to do best. So there was no way there was a hierarchy, there was no boss. It was not the one who spoke who was really making the rules, not the one who had the money who was making the rules. It was all of them perfectly sort of taking in the place they wanted to take. So the individual self is intact, but the group is bonded. We have never seen this before in society. It's a new society development. And I think we should be very proud of that. Because I think it's something we have gone through ups and downs, and we've gone through a very long period, of course, of being forced to give ourselves up. Then we had this long period of, the individual self. And if you ask many people who do urban planning, architecture for the future, the first sentence you get when you get a brief is, we live in an individualistic society and this is going to increase until the year 2050 and beyond. I've read that phrase so many times. And I believe it's already gone. So I think it's a major shift in society. I have no clue exactly how it will play out, or what will come out of it, or how it will, this abstraction of the group is very, very beautiful. It could make new ways of government. It could make new ways of empowering companies, because you would not have any more power structure, but a sort of terrace structure where people would live much more on the same level. And we see this now happening in our design and products. And one of the first products which was embodying this was this chairs designed by Maarten Baas for Established and Sons. It's an English company, so these chairs are produced, they're serial, they're not expensive. But what happens with these chairs is that they're all a little bit different, because every bit of the chair was designed 6 times. So the guy who puts them together in the plant is actually sort of deciding on the last bit of the design. Which means if you have 24 or 36 of these chairs, they are like a family, but each of them is a little bit different and has its own character. And when you put them around the table, it looks like there's already people, actually. It looks like the room is already full, because it's not the same. And this, I think, is something for the future. We see Hella working with this, we see Vicky working with this, we see several designers trying to incorporate difference and different aspects of design into the serial production. And of course we know that in the future our production methods will allow us, so we will have the discovery of a family of offers, a family of ideas, a family of services, a family of strategies. So we will be forced, and almost automatically, naturally, we will go to this idea of how do I solve this together and how do we get that done. Now, what does this mean for this individual black sheep of the family, superstar individual self? There are, of course, still many, many people like this. And there still will be also. But they will be in the wrong camp and they will be not so popular. So I think it's good, because they will have to work much harder. because we will be tough on them, and we will only accept it if they are deserving their individual self. If they are the new, whatever, Picassos, whatever you want to call them. So in fact, it also is going to be maybe very interesting for the domain of design and architecture. Now I want to share with you how much time I have, about 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, okay. I wanted to share with you some major design directions. This is residue of a program I made for an American cable giant, because they wanted to know what is now important in design and how they could cooperate with people like Apple and others and so forth. So it has 12 points, but I will go quick. Streaming is about becoming fluid. We are interested in a continuous stream of information and ideas. And we feel that our body also wants to flow in a seamless thing between the screen and our physical life. So we will be always connected, and it will be a sort of serving lifestyle where the physical and the screen will become one at one point. It's still hard to imagine how it will work, but in the recent days I've been working with department stores and with magazine makers, and everybody seems to agree that the two worlds, the virtual world and the physical world, are going to merge. And we will do everything to make that streamlined and make that fluid, and so that there is not anymore, are you here or are you there? No, I'm in both, which is true for all contrast, but in this case it's very important. So there is going to be a much more sort of movable society. Traveling is about landscaping our lives. Mobility will be the key to our well-being. The interior is built also like a landscape, everything horizontally. And we will become like nomads. So from our interior and our exterior, we don't really see the difference anymore. We just flow from one to the other. And all areas of design actually will be landscape. Now people speak even about landscaping the brain. I mean, it has become a keyword. I like this way to landscape broccoli. It's cute for your kids. It's of course also very much concerned with health and prevention of illness, which is going to be a major thing. And it will give this organic feeling to design. Farming, we have seen that already yesterday, is designing a newer age, where the borders between rural and urban are fading, and the city is actually becoming rural very much so, every day so. We see data to confirm this trend every day. Design for modern day pioneers, an alternative way of living with a more healthy background. So we sort of update the pioneer spirit. And we see this happening in design, but also in experience, also in film. And it's the rebirth, in a way, of forgotten part of society. Then there is something which I like, which is thinking in the box. Everybody always wants to think out the box, but I like to think in the box. Because I think we need to be organized at times, because it's very, very, very chaotic life, so sometimes you need to have borders. You need to feel like a beautiful pair of shoes in a nice box. And we need to compile and store data. We need to make things pragmatic. So that is the future of this little one. It's a humble design which will fold into form. It's all about craft and cardboard and make it yourself furniture. It's all flat shapes which will fold into boxes. And it is a pop-up generation. Now we are preparing an exhibit with the Graphic Museum in Brabant for December, which is called the Pop-up Generation, in which we explore the new generation of design, which is living in 2.5. This is older people who somehow don't even see the difference between working on the screen or working in 3D. And I think it's because they are born without screens, and then they learned how to live with screens, and so this is where they end up being this 2.5 position. And for them, you see that the pop-up movement doesn't seem almost to affect them anymore. And this is what I think will be very intriguing for the years to come. We will return to producing, believe it or not, because we see that there is younger manufacturers, smaller plants, and especially plants near to our homes. We think there is going to be a reaction on the current design with the revival of industrial style, which is proud to be serial and which is you can call modernistic. And this is happening also. The first signs are there. Tom Dixon is a wonderful spokesperson for this movement. But the interest here is that it's not going to be produced in far countries, but produced next door. That is the really good news I have been sharing with my clients this season, is that we are seeing the end of the exploitation of other countries. Happily, China has decided to become a creative country themselves, so they are not going to do the same work for the same ridiculous prices anymore. Bangladesh has also decided not to accept it anymore, and people put themselves to fire because they don't want to be denigrated and slave of our consumption. So what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years is that the road to cheap labor is blocked. That's a major new thing. Because that will mean that we will have to find new ways to produce, avoiding transport, which is a nightmare as such. Ecological footprints enormous, pirates and stuff, you cannot even insure it anymore. So we will build little industries here and there in our countrysides, and that will create economy and it will create local labor. So it will solve a lot of problems we are currently coping with. Improvising is something we see as a very important part of the future, which you could call make, do, design, which is a work in progress, which is the interventionist consumer which takes the matter into his own hand. He will hammer the shape into his own chair. He will create his own sound machines, his own films, his own books, will write his own romance, and so forth. He will invent the tiniest little thing which works. On the right, it's this design of Peter Marigold, which is just a little 3-thumb in bronze, and it can hold any load in a corner. So, that's nicely done. So it's using very humble means. Lots of knitting going on, and knotting and braiding. And it's getting really to critical mass. There's a lot of knitting in design today. And that flows automatically into the craft, which is the design which is made by hand, and which is taking over a big part of what we see happening. This is defining new identity. This is creating the artist in us. This is the tactility our fingers are craving for because we live with screens. This is to see through touch is really what I see happening. And this means that we will have more fantasy, more variation, more employment close to the home, and that all design endeavors will include the community. So whatever you want to do, whatever you want to sell or promote, will always include people from the community, which will bring in the music, which will bring in the food, which will bring in the film, which will do the cleaning, which will do the knitting, and so forth. And this is a very hopeful, again, sign of a new society, of a rebuilding society. Out of naivety, it's very naive, but it's working. And in the United States, I think it's actually now becoming a very strong underground current, which nobody sees because the Vogues and the Newsweeks and all these publications don't even know. So it's something which is cooking under the skin of society and which is going to be visible at one point everywhere. I'm speaking with so many people and it comes back and it comes back. And again, it's creating jobs. We will continue to enchant because fiction is necessary in our environment. It will go back and forth according to the times, according to the economic climate, but it's an underlying need people have. We will continue to be haunted by Alice in one way or another, sometimes more surreal, sometimes more fairy tale, sometimes more serial. It's going to be vital still in communication, in film, in drafting scenarios for cities, for seminars, and so forth. Then I think there is light, which is important. That is for the consumers who want everything new, and they are keen on design, which is molecular and viral, and they need hypertech therapy. So they always want to go on to the newest material, the newest experience, the newest laboratory, the newest invention, the newest invisible things, included in textiles, included in food, and so forth. We can also look at an animated society, because we are really sick of the fear factor by now. The consumer demands the return of optimism. Cartoons invade our reality, and we want to have an animated language. So we see that cartoon is actually spilling into design, literally. And designing form, designing shape, designing flat as well as dimensional things. And this again is going through all categories, whether they are physical or virtual. Disguise is actually becoming the norm, especially for kids. They go to school in this type of outfits in Japan. Also, people are needing to feel their roots at times and live like a contemporary caveman, being the Fred Flintstones of tomorrow, interested in skeleton design, drumming up new senses of technology, because after all, the tom-tom is really the forefather, I would say, of internet. Looking at prehistorical inspirations, which is actually meeting the future. This is the new Fred Flintstone and his wife. And we see that we are going to totemize and fetishize whatever we do. Then finally, I think there is maybe longer in time the idea of clouding, where we will grow into a period where we would long for immaterial things. In a quest to simplify our lives, we formulate a future beyond the borders of our perception. We want to take flight and liberate our spirits from the contingency of everyday concerns. Design will be dematerialized into virtual form. Holographic systems will allow us to call hovering shapes all around and over us. And we will live in something which is maybe called the house of the moving image, where everything will be more or less projected, and you can ask it to come up or to go. I must tell you that I was just in New York and I saw the exhibit of Alexander McQueen, which is an amazing, amazing, beautiful thing. It is as successful as the Van Gogh exhibit. They've never seen anything like it. And in that exhibit is this image of Kate Moss, and she's a hologram in a beautiful dress, and she is moving around. And it is amazing to see it. It's very, very moving. It really brings people to tears in a very new way, I would say. It's a new emotion you have not known before. And that is maybe one of the images we could think of. It's hard to describe. It's hard to imagine. It's an absolute wish for the lightness of being, the lightness of materials, the lightness of new technology. It will become intuitive and telepathic. We work with the industry of smartphones, And we discuss telepathy at length because we believe that with our current exchange of information, our brain is actually going to be able to go without phones. I don't know if you have the same, but I have more and more that messages cross and that people sort of come to you. You just have to think about them and they come. Or just you think, I want water and here it is. So it's ephemeral and translucent and maybe cooked and maybe weirdly produced in very new avant-garde treatments. Again, there is the flatness and the dimension which work together. And what this image says to me, I'm really keen on this image, it's just an ordinary ad, is that I ask myself, what if I just have to project? What if I can just buy an image of a new chair or a new building or a new shoe or a new hamburger and I just project it so I don't need to have it? What if it could happen that we don't need, that we need less and less and less things and that we just could imagine them? Just use our fantasy, use our brain more, so we don't actually need to have it. So then I think the sky is the limit. Thank you. Thank you.
Miss Edelkoort, thank you so much. First of all, there were a lot of happy women on Twitter because the man gets romantic.
Yes.
So this is hopeful.
Very hopeful.
Very hopeful, but
Yeah.
the whole future sounds, to me, it sounds very hopeful and
Provided we overcome the Third World War, which is, at the horizon. So there's some work to be done before. But I think, yes, there is lots of ingredients which show you that change is possible and that change is going to be healthy and helpful, will bring the world closer together and things like that.
so you actually are talking about the whole world because we had interesting speakers from India and from China, and of course I wonder how real this view, this future will be for the people in those countries.
Well, we work in those countries and we see that in many cases trends travel around the world equally. It's sort of universal ideas, but what happens is that in some countries one idea picks up more and another idea picks up more than another. So the pace doesn't matter, there's no preference actually. But for instance, to be in the box could be really interesting if you're in an emerging economy because you still need to find strengths and organization and you have to cope with all this newness. Whereas maybe more free form, like archaic form, is really sort of for us like a therapy because we need to sort of deconstruct. So it depends where you are. But it's, I think those countries are going to discover similar things in a much quicker pace, of course, than the Western countries did. But they are already aware, and also I can see how they are already counterbalancing things and changing things while we go, and that's good.
So you can say also in those countries the future is hopeful, full of hope?
Yes, of course, because they are just getting somewhere and they are enjoying it, I think.
So what do you think about the function of design? I mean, we saw a lot of designs, but design as a function, does it have to change in the future?
It always changes, and then it doesn't. It's always...
Okay, do you have an example? Because
it's always a cup, but the cup can change. Or it's always a roof and walls, but they will change. So the sort of primary functions, or it can be communication, or it can be a strategy, is a strategy. However, you will design it in another way 10 years ago, today, and in 10 years from now. So design, I believe, is like a mirror of our times, able to sort of say, okay, here we are, this is what is concerning us today. And so when you read that, you can read society.
But don't you think that it's new that designers take more responsibility nowadays? That they feel like they have to take more
Well,
responsibility?
that was one of the very important things of William Morris in the arts and crafts movement. He was building ateliers for people and disabled. He was very concerned of community building. And in fact, what we do today is pretty similar to what he did. Also in the modernist movement and in the constructivist movement, there was ideals which we can embrace again today. So I think it has always been concerned with society. Today, maybe it's becoming more to the forefront as a reaction against the recent sort of, let's say, eruption of talent we have seen, which could just, do what they wanted, and now we come to a sort of reality check. But all these things have their place, and that is why it's so interesting that since I work in design, which is about 17 years, I have seen the discipline go from something you could sort of define, but now you see that there's absolutely no definition anymore to have, because it's growing and growing and growing and growing. And now we say we are designing a policy, we are designing. So everything becomes design, and I think that is more what it is that every creative thought process could be called design.
What does it mean for the designers of the future? Do we need to educate them in a different way?
The schools will have to be more and more open. And what we see today, it's very cool, is that you can make departments, but it doesn't work. Because the students, they just do what they want. So the artists are actually making fashion, and the fashion people are doing films, and the filmmakers are doing 3D design, and so the graphic designers are embroidering, and the textile designers are, in a virtual project. So it's very nice. You cannot contain them anymore. And the same is true for the whole disciplines we are in. People want to dance, they do music, they do, even the scene is now sort of getting together with these things. So, in fact, I try to understand what is happening, and I believe actually that it is a silent revolt to what is happening in politics. I think since our countries are bringing back the borders, narrowing our scope, making our countries idiot little, egocentric things, and this is true for all European countries, and it gets worse every day, I think there, the sort of creative elite is, without shouting up, they say, okay, you want to have borders, we are completely going to demolish all borders. Right. Now, we need to make ourselves heard with this, because otherwise I think we are in trouble.
So we need... So, tell us some ways how we can get heard, because that's important, I think.
Well, the other week, not so long ago, I was here, and it was for May, and in running up to the Liberation Day, and all these memory films of the Nazi regime, and the Jews singled out and stuff like that. Well, recently, I don't know. There was a French politician. There was John Galliano. There is this French guy who's he's the football team, what do you call it, coach. And he has invented that we should have quotas, that there's not so many foreign people. Then there is, I don't know, with Strauss-Kahn, there's all this sexism. You just figure it out. The Muslims, the gypsies out of France, Holland, overtly against Muslims, the law against burqa. It's only 2,000 women, they're all French. I mean,
so then the future isn't that romantic and beautiful after all.
No, the future at this point is pretty horrible, I must say. Yeah. But I'm trying to look over that period, because we shall overcome.
We need.
Yeah. It's a task, I would say.
That's a task for all the people who are here, for the designers as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not, when I talk about it, many people do like, yeah, I know, and that's not enough.
Well, what are you doing?
I'm trying to talk about it wherever I go.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and I ask you to stay with us on the stage because Richard van der Laken has something he wants to offer you.
Oh, okay.
Because
Something yellow.
something interesting.
It's
the book
it's,
is
it's the new
finished.
pink. Eh?
It's
I'm,
the new-
yeah. I really am a happy man because the last slide was the sky is the limit. I didn't know that you would end with that slide, but I'm very happy because I think that is of course the message to us all. So I'm a happy man that you ended with that. We compiled this book in the last 2 days. How do you say it? The last additional parts are printed right now. So in a way, it's a
Work in progress.
symbolic gesture to you. Thank you very much for being here,
Thank you.
and we are going to talk a little bit more about the book. This
Thank
one is
you.
for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lidewij Edelkoort. So, because this book is a resume of what has happened here today.
Well, not only today, it's a resume of the past 2 days, and next to that, it's also filled with 4 essays with 4 of our great speakers, 4 interviews with 4 of our speakers. We have a compilation of all the breakout sessions and all the ideas that you brought to us. They will be in this book, and it's available tonight at the party that starts at 9:30 in Café Cox.
Another reason to go to the party.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Lucas.
And then we're getting to the
Yeah.
end, but I thought you shouldn't end with a sort of a roundup. So we're going to do something which is not scripted, is not meant to be, but we're going to do it. I want to know what we've learned, and I thought of this line. I've written down all your names. I'm going to ask you the question: what have we learned the last 2 days? So I'm going to jump over to you, and you stand up and say something. But I'm first going to ask you: what have you learned in the last 2 days?
Yeah, I think that what we have learned in the last 2 days is that we're not alone, and I think that's a very good thing to know. Of course, you know it, but on days like these, it's for me, a very fine thing to see. And what I mean is that we're not alone in this audience, but also we're here with 24 speakers, and a lot of them are still sitting here. They have been with us for 2 days, so I would give them a warm applause.
Yeah, I saw them. Great. Great.
Could you stand up, please? The first speaker was Mr. Ranjan, and he made a great impression of us. What have you learned in the last 48 hours?
Well, something I learned very, very recently was that China is looking for another way. And I think that's wonderful. Yeah, that's really wonderful, what I heard.
But it's really different from the way India is looking for, isn't it?
Yes, I hope India looks harder. And we hope that this will help us there look harder. Because we are working. We want you to join us.
You don't want that modernism, huh?
Well, I don't think it is modernism. I don't want to give it a name. I think it is concern. It is being, with feeling. And I think to understand that design is important. And design has an answer. It's not just science and technology. It is something more than that. It's about feeling and it's about concern. And I think this is the key. To be concerned and then to be caring and nurture. These are the key ideas.
Thank you. Mrs. Borgesh, do you agree that it's about concern?
Yes, I do, totally. And what I feel also is that it doesn't matter where I live, where he lives. I think that there is what we could see here these 2 days, that there is a movement for making design more related to its social dimension. So we can use design as world citizens to have a better world. I think this for me was, as Richard likes the messages, for me this was the message in my case.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, could you stand up as well? Yeah.